Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the Food Markets 4.0 conference. The event we are going to discuss about new paradigm on the food systems, how to bring new technologies, digital world to the primary, secondary production of the food and consumption of food as well. My name is Michał Gazdecki, and I am from a Poznań University of Life Sciences. I have a privilege to run this session. Especially yesterday, during the first plenary session, Bettina von Stamm introduced us with a lot of challenges which food markets are facing now. I hope that those 2 days of discussions we already had and we still are going to have today will bring us with a lot of inspirations and ideas how to develop research and innovation projects and overcomes those challenges. New technologies become more and more important for different levels of food system. However, during that session, we are going to focus on a primary production stage, which is, in my opinion, less known for part of the audience. Dear all, I am so excited to introduce you our keynote speaker, Dr. George Beers, Project Manager of Internet of Food and Farm 2020. George, thank you very much that you have accepted our invitation. Before I will pass the voice to you, let me share your bio with the audience. Dr. George Beers holds a PhD in management science and we focus on project management. He is a specialist in strategic information management in agribusiness. His core competence is connecting different worlds. Dr. Beers has been working for Wageningen University and research since 1991 in several research and management positions. He was scientific director of the co-innovation program Agri-Chain Competences from 1998 to 2001. Founder and CEO of the Green Knowledge Cooperation on innovation of a Dutch agriculture education system. Between 1999 and 2004, Dr. Beers holds the chair in agribusiness at Wageningen University, starting in 2014 with the Smart Agri-Food to Acceleration projects for small and medium enterprises. He is currently coordinating large-scale EU project on the field of digital innovation in agri-food. Since January 2017, he is coordinator of the Horizon 2020 large-scale pilot of Internet of Farm and Food and a project of digital innovation for farmers. As you can see, a lot of projects, extended experience, and this is something what we are going to listen during his speech. During the presentation, we are going to have like 2 or maybe 3 Q&A sessions. So please, all of you, you are welcome to provide us with your comments and questions with the chat functions. George, I would like to pass the floor to you, and we are all welcome your speech. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Michał. Can you hear me? And
yeah, we can hear you properly and see your presentation.
Perfect. Okay, first of all, thanks for giving me the opportunity to present some work that we did for the past 4, 5, 6 years, and I'm happy to present the project that is called IOF 2020, Internet of Food and Farms 2020. Before starting the project, maybe it's good to be aware that this is a really a flagship, a very huge project, but running such a project, you don't do it when there's a call from the European Commission. You start working on a consortium. Now this is we call it an ecosystem approach, and we built this ecosystem, this partnership for IOF 2020 during a couple of years, during a sequence of projects that is now on the screen. So we started already in 2010 to prepare a proposal on smart agri-food, and then this was in the Future Internet program. in which we started to work on infrastructure for IoT and for, well, in those days it was called cloud computing. So in a sequence of projects, we built the partnerships on both sides, on agri-food companies, but also on IT providers. So this is not as you just do as a one shot for preparing a proposal. This is carefully building on an ecosystem. iOS 2020 is part of a program at the European Commission. It's called the IoT Large-Scale Pilots, and it's the intention of the program is to push the use of IoT in Europe. We're talking now about in the time frame of 2016. So this digitalization is going very fast. So maybe it's strange to hear that we had to push IoT, but at that time it was necessary. The challenge was not only to build technology, but also to make it work and to have business models and to address some practical issues like ethics, to deal with the security and privacy aspects. So this was part of the program, and there were 5 large-scale pilots, and one of them was for agri-food, which was the IOF project. So the objectives of IOF are in the line of the IoT large-scale pilot program. It's demonstrating that IoT can be beneficial for the agri-food sector, basically, and to really to demonstrate and make it work. And since this is an innovation action, the most important part is that you create impact of your project. That something is happening in your sector and in society. That's the important objective of this IOF project. So well, we in the project we integrated a lot of things that are related to digitalization, so AI, big data, cloud computing, traceability, and we did it on the different aspects of the environmental, the climate, and the health and the food security issues. The project, like I said, it's a pretty large project. We have in the project integrated 116 partners. That's only the official partners. I think looking at the project as we ended, it were more than 250 companies and organizations involved. We're working on all countries in the European Union. It was a 4-year program, and we finalized it in March this year. The budget was the 30 million subsidy from the Commission. I will come back to that. Here you see where we have our use cases. We have 33 use cases, and those were basically the core of the project. And please be aware that use cases are not small projects. These are really substantial projects on an average of €500,000 subsidy. And we organized it in a way that we have 5 trials in which the use cases in the same sector are let's say organized together, and they also have meetings together. So that's also to create synergy between the different use cases in a specific sector. Each of the use case, they have a poster like this, in which we can see the key elements of a use case. It's of course the technical solution, how it is designed. It's a partnership, different countries and different partners. But what I want to demonstrate here is that we also have the KPIs. From the beginning on, we asked all the use cases to define their key performance indicators. So in this case, it's about water consumption, reducing the water consumption in potato production. It's reducing on inputs, and especially on the pesticide part. That's one of the key objectives of this case. Another aspect that I want to mention here is that it's an innovation action where we start with, let's say, proven and validated technology. And the main objective is to bring it to the market. So in terms of technology readiness levels, this one is in the high TRLs. So it's really from starting at 6. So we have tested and validated prototypes, and now we have to develop it into products and to do market studies and convince users that it is an interesting solution. So that's one of the use cases. I will go briefly through the trials to touch upon a couple of interesting things. Here we have the arable farms, and the arable farms was basically the domain of I call it the big machines. Key issue there is that we have a lot of machines operating on the farms, and how to integrate them, how to make them use the same GPS codes, and how to make them use the same protocol. So that's called the interoperability. One solution is that you buy a machine from one provider and you have to buy all other machines from those providers. In this project, we have the case on farm-machine integration, in which we mobilized all European machine builders to work on interoperability between their machines. So you can buy a tractor from one and then a harvester or a plow from another, and they will perfectly be integrated in sharing information. Another project is that in the field management zoning project, we have a lot of integrated machines, because there's a scan of the soil, so to know exactly what is the soil, to integrate it also with satellite data and with all kinds of data from the different machines. Another interesting case in this is that we also have the soya protein project, in which we monitor the quality of the soy while it is in production. So a lot of technology is used there, and I think it's also looking at the Polish audience. We also have a case in Poland with the farm feeds and how to use IoT to improve the quality of the potatoes that for processing. And one of the aspects is also that you keep track of the different batches of potatoes. So the traceability is important also for the food processing. Another case is the dairy, and that there we have basically 3 projects that are doing well. If you looking not very carefully, they're doing the same. One of them is monitoring the places and the movements of the cow. Another is taking care of the health of the cow, and the third one is integrating all those aspects. I can say that, for instance, the happy cow is it's one of the star cases, and this is one of the cases that's really managed to get on the market. They are selling their solution, and the solution is about the collar for the cow, in which a lot of things are monitoring the health, the temperature, and but also the movements. And if there is an abnormality in the behavior of the cow, it is detected, and there are warning systems for the farmers. The nice thing about this type of solution is that the farmer doesn't need to have a look at his cow every day, but he can go to a birthday party and be with his family. If there's something wrong with the cow, he will get a message on his smartphone, and then he can go to the cow. So that's also for the social life of the farmers. It's pretty important, but also for early detection of upcoming diseases. So you can make your intervention in time without much damage to the cow. That's in the other projects. We have an application solution where the fine-tuning of the minerals is managed, and the last one I want to mention here is that remote milk quality. Usually the quality of the milk is measured at when the milk is delivered at the processing factory, but in this use case they experimented with milk quality measurements at the farm, so the farmer can direct intervene when there's something happening in the quality of the milk, and he can also get direct feedback of well, changing his feed strategy. Those kinds of things are in that case. The next one is the vegetables, the Internet of Vegetables. We have a solution for city farming, so that's in indoor farming, in which basically you can grow crops in a container and manage them from a distance. That's why the IoT combination, the IoT aspect is coming in. You can manage it from a distance. We also have a greenhouse application there, where the greenhouses can be managed on distance, but managing not only just the production, monitoring the production, but also predicting the harvesting moments and the harvesting quantities, and to see if you can change the moment of delivery, so that cooperatives can give some direction to when they want to have the produce. This project is basically initiated and managed from a cooperative, and we have been experimenting with I think 10 greenhouses in that. We also have here the quality certification that was in the field of organic and origin guarantees, and one of the biggest quality certification institutes in Italy, Spain, mainly on wine. They managed to make their certification procedure free from paper. So usually when an auditor is coming on the farm, he's confronted with a large pile of paper that he has to go through. But now the farm is monitored by a lot of electronic data that are more objective and more difficult to manipulate, and so they really saved a lot of time and like I said, paper. Another aspect there is that they started with a virtual reality application of each of the wineries to train auditors. This was the objective, but it ended up that this virtual reality is now adopted by the wineries, because they use the same application for customers in China and far away, so they can visit the winery in a virtual environment. So when they want to when they're thinking of buying their wines, they can have a virtual tour along the winery. So this is a side effect, I would call it serendipities. And I must say we have seen a lot of serendipities, so different, so unexpected products from the cases. This was a nice example. Here we see an infographic of one of the cases. This is the case on trace. It's Europool. Maybe you are aware that a lot of agricultural produce is handled logistically in plastic trays, foldable plastic trays. They are all owned, and here you see different colors. The green color is, let's say, the physical environment in which the solution is operating. So this is a Europool center, where the trays are stored and cleaned, and the trays are equipped with a device that keeps track of where the place and the temperature and the humidity of the tray. So the trays are collected and processed in Europool, then they go to the farmer, then they go to the distribution center of the big retailers, and they ended up in the supermarket, and then they are returned to Europool again to be cleaned and distributed again. So this is the physical environment. The solution here, it's in purple, where you can see that each tray, well, it's not each tray, but they do it sample wise in this project, because the costs of the devices, you have to be aware that they are managing 200 million of those trays. So to have all trays equipped with this is quite expensive. But we are doing the experiment now to see how many trays should be labeled with this device. The tray is continuously, and that's the IoT aspect in blue, continuously can be tracked where it is. And in the orange color, you see the users and the user value, the customer value. And to give you an idea, Europool is losing a lot of trays every day, because, well, people keep them for themselves and put them in their summer house or in their storage. So now you are in trouble when you are using a tray for your private use, because they can detect it. So and only that to have less trays being lost is more than enough to compensate for the costs already in the project. But there's also other aspects in this, because the tray can be monitored, where it's going, how long is it staying in the farm, how long is it staying in the distribution center. So this is important information also for the retailers to know about the time frames of the logistics during their logistic process. Is it too center, then intervention is needed there. Is it too long in the supermarket? Well, then maybe people should be aware of that. So that's one of our more logistic oriented case. It's a very successful one, and Europool is continuously expanding the solution. Looking at the fruit, we have, well, one of the most popular one is, of course, the wine optimization. Here we also have in the wine optimization is not only having IoT devices in the vineyard for monitoring the status of the crop, but also in the cellars to monitor the wine processing process and the wine ripening, and whether the control is okay. Here in this project, we also have, let's see if I have it here. Yeah, we also have, it started as a blockchain case to experiment with blockchains. So the idea was to monitor the full value chain of the wine product, from the wine makers to the end, the consumer, by putting devices in the pallet, in the boxes, to see if the temperature is within certain limits. When it's too hot, the quality of the wine will be degraded. Also, when it's too cold, there will be problems. During the logistics, a lot of glass bottles, so there's damage. So that will be also detected in the pallet. and all those data, where it is and what the situation is, it's all put in the cloud. And when there's in the end a problem, it can be traced back to where the problem emerged. So that's also good for, let's say, the value chain in having disputes about the quality. Where did it go wrong? It can be traced, but it can also be used for good information to the consumers. So it's absolutely, you can be sure where the wine is coming from, and that's really originating in a certain winery, in a certain district. Like I said, it started as a blockchain application. However, I have to say that blockchain is very good for companies like Walmart and the big companies. But it's quite expensive as for the basic infrastructure. So in this project, they developed an own infrastructure, a dedicated infrastructure for this type of traceability. They are on the market and they are quite successful. So this is also, you don't need to have the full IBM infrastructure. So there are other types of solutions for having the same function. Then we have a couple of use cases that are in the meat sector. A nice one is the poultry, where we have a lot of information on the production side, like the temperature, but also devices where the weight of the chicken is monitored. So chickens are tempted to jump on a scale, and then they are you can measure the weight, and you do it frequently. But also the temperature, humidity in the barn, and other all the relevant data. Also data on the transport to the slaughterhouse, the temperature and all kind of humidity aspects can be measured there. And the nice thing is that there's also feedback from the slaughterhouse. So the quality of the chicken once they are slaughtered is given back to the farm. So with this is typically a big data analysis to see what kind of factors on this specific batch are of influence of the quality. So that's here we have a perfect example of big data, the use of big data. Here we have the pig case, and what I want to demonstrate here is that we have a pig barn where the pigs are monitored, how much they eat, the conditions of the pigs, the weight, or everything is monitored. But I want to demonstrate here that the number of users of this pile of data that is collected, the veterinarians can be when they do inspection or when there's disease, they can look in the data to see what went wrong or what could be improved. The meat processor can have data about the use of medicines. Antibiotics is definitely an issue here. Farm advisors can have a look at the data, and for instance, the feed supplier can also get some feedback of how his feed is contributing to optimizing the product quality. So there's a lot of different users on this involved in this specific case. Here I was referring to the traceability of wine. Here we have another, let's say, blockchain application. They ran into the same problem, and this is about the quality assurance and the guarantees and traceability of beef. So here you can see the beef change from rangeland to slaughterhouse, to processing, to end consumer, and all the steps in this process are monitored, and the data are put in the cloud. The devices used are the collars and the ear tags. They are experimenting with, let's say, more advanced ear tags than the common ones. So also that ear tags that collect data. Here also the customer value that when it's range meat, not from a so free range meat, that can be guaranteed towards the consumer by traceability devices, and farmers can also get some feedback from their production. So this is to give you an idea of the different type of cases that we use. There's a lot more to tell, but maybe have some questions now.
George, thanks a lot for this introduction, I would say, but it was an extended introduction, I would say. But we had actually two interesting questions from the audience. So let me read the first one from Anya Rogala. If farmer would like to start implementing the presented solutions, and in your opinion, what are the main entrance barrier, the costs or the technology adoption among the farmer?
You're always inviting me to go to the second phase of my presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, well, let me get briefly. I will go into that in these questions, exactly these questions, in the next part of the presentation. But the costs are, of course, you have to be aware that this is a pilot, so every device needs to be developed. So we have pushed the use cases to think about the costs when they are full scale. Yeah, so that's more realistic. When thousands of farmers are using, the costs are much lower, of course. And the entrance barriers I'll keep for my for the next stage.
Okay, I understand. Okay, so we have another solution, another interesting question from Mateusz Kot. Have you investigated human factor in the implementation of IoT in agriculture? It's quite complicated since this is a cutting-edge technology. What is needed from farmers so they were able to incorporate this type of technology into this solution and this solution into their processes?
Sure. We also looked. We have let's say a register of what we call practical problems, and one of the most mentioned practical problem is the skills. Not only the skills at the farmer, but we noticed that there are a lot of devices in the field. So the field workers also should be aware of, well, there's a cable or there's an expensive device hanging in the crop. So when they're handling the machinery, they have to be careful. So a lot of things went wrong in that aspect. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is that yeah, it's about the skills, but also, like I gave the example of the impact that the solution has on the social life of farmers. When a lot of monitoring and alarming systems are implemented, farmers have, they can be more at ease, because when something's going wrong, when there's rodents are destroying your crop, there's an alarm going on, and you don't need to go there every day or twice a day or 3 times a day. But that's these are some human aspects, but we definitely, because we are really implementing and making it work in practice at real farms, at saleable products. So you're running all those kind of well, I call it practical.
I would like to maybe add one question to that point. Simply the question is, do farmers trust such a solution, such a technology?
Not at first instance. No. What we did is each case has at least 5 to 10 test farms. And in the test farms, you're looking for farmers that are, let's say, more advanced, and farmers that are known in the region as being very innovative, and farmers that, well, when they say it, it can be trusted. That's also in the ecosystem part of our project, that we also organize a demonstration at those test farms, so farmers can have a look and talk to the farmer who has, let's say, first-hand experience. And of course, in the first year, a lot of things go wrong, and you have to adjust a lot of things. But in the last 2 years, we had an enormous amount of demonstrations by farmers. We trained the farmers, the test farmers, to give good presentations. And well, in the end, it is a commercial activity. So the providers of the solutions, they have to convince the farmers, their potential customers, and they can make use of the demonstration farms of that. That's how we basically handled this issue.
Yeah. George, to be honest, during your speech, I lost a connection for a while, but this is actually related to the next question from the audience, because the question is, are those systems, solutions, resistant somehow to the periodic internet or power outages?
Sorry, the internet?
Yeah, lack of internet, like a periodic lack of internet.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Power. Definitely. That's one. When you enter the rural area, you don't have 5G everywhere. So that's really one of the issues that need to be solved in the future. It's not only on the very remote areas, but we entered in this one, this issue of connectivity in a lot of cases. To be honest, the people that are designing the technology, they do it as if there is full connectivity, but they have a lot of shortcuts. For instance, we have a couple of projects that are working with LoRaNet, so the long distance Wi-Fi, I would say. But also they have the option to when the tractor is in the field and he has lost connection, or then he starts to move at edge computing, and as soon as the tractor is driving into the barn again, then the connection with the internet is laid, and the IoT application can work. So they had to do a lot of shortcuts in this aspect. But we assume, and I think everybody is aware that this problem will be solved in the next decade anyway. I'm not sure about the north of Sweden, but
Okay, I understand. George, and maybe last question in that session, because you presented a lot of solutions for different sectors like food production, meat production, and so on. Could you please provide us with like one example of a device which were developed within that projects, like an interesting one?
Well, an interesting one. I have two. One was successful, and that was an audio device that is in the pigs in the pig barn. So you have, let's say, 10 piglets, and then there's a microphone close to those piglets, and the microphone is tuned that it catches the coughing of the piglets. When one piglet is coughing, there's an alarm going on, because there might be an infectious disease that can go through the whole barn. But if you detect it in time, you only have to treat the 10 piglets. So that's one. Another one that we worked on, and that was in the poultry. In the poultry one, there was feedback from the slaughterhouse that a lot of chicken had broken legs or broken wings, and you have to be aware that one of the tricky operations in poultry is the catching of the chicken. The chicken have to be catched. They're running free through the barn, and when they are ready to go to the slaughterhouse, they have to be catched. And chicken catching is quite rough. It's they do it by night when the chicken are sleeping. But you know, well, you can imagine what's happening when you are entering a barn with 10,000 chicken. What's happening? So what they did is they experimented with gloves, gloves with motion sensors in it. So they wanted to see if there's difference between the different chicken catchers, if there are, let's say, elegant ones that are
gentle,
smoothly operating, or there are wild ones. This was a nice experiment, but in the end, they concluded that was not a marketable product to be made of it. But I always like this example. And maybe in future it will come on the market for other devices.
Well, why not? Why not? Yeah, especially this detection of Odysseus. This is so important. Yeah, how machines could alarm in advance. Yeah, that some this is coming. This is so important from different reasons. Yeah, for instance, farmers could reduce the cost significantly if he's able to predict that this is which is going to happen within the animals. Yeah, okay. I think we can go to the next part of the presentation. So I will give the floor to yours.
Okay.
Please continue.
Okay. Now we have the cases, and I mentioned already they are. This is an innovation action, so we are operating in the high TRLs. So in most cases started with TRL technology readiness level 5, so proven prototype. But there are certain aspects in that. It's the scientists, the people that worked on it are not interested anymore, but there are too many uncertainties for making it a viable solution. And this is known as in innovation scene, it is known as the valley of death. A lot of interesting prototypes stop here because nobody wants to take the risk. So that's where IOF 2020 was operating. So we had to tackle a lot of the issues that are in the valley of death. Another one is that you have in the, let's say, in the low TRLs, we have so the basic research, the development of prototypes, maybe having a lab version of a prototype. Oh, sorry. This is usually funded publicly, pre-competitive, but here we are also ending in well, the interest of companies. So you have to make this shift from public to private sector with a lot of IPR related issues in it. So this is where basically IOF is operating. And it's not only that we have a nice set of cases, but we also have created in IOF an infrastructure to foster those cases, to help them, to support them, but also to push them. And I think it's good to know that we used what we call the minimal viable product approach. So already after half a year in the project, so we had the project was 4 years, but after half a year, every case should deliver a version not only the technology solution, but also the added value of the solution and some information on the product they are expecting, the KPIs that should be related. And when they delivered the project, the MVP, we looked at different aspects. We looked at the technical. Is it state of the art? Are there other solutions possible? A more effective solution? Do you have make use of good standards? Those kinds of things for the IoT integration, because we have to be aware that you can develop a nice solution, but in the end you need to have the same plugs that there are already on the farm. So integration is really an issue there. And we had a team looking very carefully on that one. What we do in all the MVPs is doing an assessment, so what is delivered, and we give advice for the next MVP. So that's one on the technical part. But we also, from the beginning on, from day one, we have a team of business people that are helping the use cases to develop their solution into a business proposition. And in this one, we have the, let's say, the hardcore economics, I would say, the people who are thinking about the business modeling, but also on the soft side, how to are there specific issues on the governance of the data? Are there ethical issues involved in that? I think that's also an important aspect, to have a look at, do an assessment on the case and to give advice for the next round. And last but not least, we also have ecosystem. So this is also to involve all parties that have to be aware of this solution, because most of the solution is not only the farmer and a technology provider, it's also the internet provider. It's about a lot of cases are using reference data. It's using different, the suppliers of the farms are involved, also the customers of the farms. So bringing all those relevant stakeholders, the multi-actor approach, as it is called in European jargon, have to be involved in developing those cycles. So this is what we did as a project to help and support the use cases, but also it was not a nice task to do, but to push them to really deliver. And during the project, they didn't like that role, of course, but in the end, I got feedback from all the use cases that they really appreciated that there was a party who was very critical on their progress and kept on pushing them. So this is so basically, when we look at the project, this is quite complex, but the message here is that we have a use case level in the project. So every use case is having its own architecture in the system and so on. But we also have the learnings, I would say, on project level. So use cases have an architecture, but we collect them and we see if there are similarities in the architecture. So we end up with a set of reference architecture. The same for data models. Every use case has a data model, but we noticed that there are a lot of similar data models. We have reusable components. So from the 30 cases, 20 of them used a weather station. So if you have one good operating weather station, use it instead of developing a new one. So this was reusability was a very important aspect in supporting the use cases. They don't have to develop everything themselves because some inventions are already done in other cases. So this is important to be aware. It's on the technical level, but we did the similar approach on the business level. What we if we looked what kind of issues were quite important that we have to deal with at the project level. Standardization was an important one, and so a lot of standardization in organization have been involved in the cases. They just to look and see what is needed there and what kind of standards are needed and at what level the standards need to be defined. Related to that is interoperability, so how to make from different suppliers, machines, or also let's say management information systems or satellite data, how to make all those things interoperable. So that was an important topic in the technology team. They didn't work much on developing new devices, new sensors or so on. We used what was on the market and we worked on the interoperability and the standardization. I think IOF also largely contributed to some standards in the agri-food industry. Yeah.
Just to let you know, we have like about 10, maybe 15 minutes to complete this session. Yeah. So just to let you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. About the timing. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Reusability is an important aspect, like I mentioned, not reinventing the wheel all over. We developed new business models, so that was for the problem that was addressed in the question And it's not only a business model for the solution, but the business model for all parties that are involved in that solution. So the technology providers for maintenance, internet connectivity, but also if parties have to deliver reference data and so on. Trust, when a lot of cases are putting data in the cloud, who's going to use it, and are there enough insurance that nobody is making abuse of it? And trust is really, I call it the hot potato in the whole project. It's difficult to have in the current situation to have a full sharing of data. A lot of work needs to be done on that. Test and demonstration. It's important to have a nice case, but also to present it in a good way. So all our use cases have gone through a demonstration training. And I think the other ones I will come back in next slides. Maybe good to know that in the project, the first year was our focus on technology, so the interoperability and stuff like that. Next year was on business development, and we really focused on demonstration in the third year. And the last year was on how to sustain, so how to create real impact, not only in the use case, but also in the sector. An overview of what we had the results. So here there are a lot of deployment sites in the different, so where you really can go and see what has been implemented. A lot of organizations are involved, and also components. Other results are in the business support. We have the KPIs, we have instructions and guidelines to develop business models. We have methods for market study. We also worked on the privacy guidelines. Basically, we in this aspect, we promoted and we stimulated and supported the use cases to use the code of conduct. Also, like I mentioned here, in the business support is not only the hard side, but also the soft side in pitch training and demonstration skill, because pitch training is important to present the use case for potential investors. Looking at the business development in the use cases, we have all case. The green is that we managed to have it on 100%. Orange is that it's in progress, and red is that well, it doesn't work yet very well. So we have 2 cases in red, and most of the others have been progressed very well. Also in the business model, you see the same part. So we can say that out of the 33, most of them, more than 30, managed to have a good business model. And I'm happy to say that about half of the cases are really producing on the market. Another interesting aspect is that we have a subsidy of, in these cases, we have a subsidy of 20 million. But in total, we asked all the use cases how much resources are used. In total, we saw that additional funding from the private sector companies is over 47 million. So we have a huge multiplier in our use cases, and we noticed that a lot of companies are contributing to the cases without getting money for that, because they just want to join the project. I will skip a lot of an interesting result is the IoT catalog. So there are a lot of reusable components, as we call them. They are to be used in, they are stored in a catalog. And please, if you are interested, feel free to have a look at it. It's not only the solution, but also where you can have a look at it, what the value proposition of the solution is, what kind of IT problems. It's a very advanced database of interesting reusable components. And they are collected from the use cases. For instance, the weather station is one of the examples. Let's skip that one. The ecosystem, I think we managed to start in the first phase of the project raising awareness, so to make the project known, and then people connecting to the project. And the last phase is now to have a long-lasting impact. Another result is that during the project we noticed that a lot of cases were struggling with, let's say, the soft side, with difficult to define problems, but they turned out to be ethical in terms of who is owning the data, who can use it, and who can have access to it. So we included a complete new team on the ethical dimensions, and they supported the use cases on this aspect as well. And like I said, code of conduct was an important instrument to help the use cases to implement that one. These are the main results, and I think we have a vibrant ecosystem and a lot of synergies between the cases. And I think most of all, what we are still continuing to work with is a coherent approach for how to work with use case support and monitoring. I think these are the most important results of this project that we collected as lessons learned in the project. So.
Okay, thank you, George. So I think we can come back now to the question which was asked after the first session about the barriers. Yeah.
The barriers.
Yeah.
Well, the barriers are, of course, the main barrier that we faced is costs, because we saw that a lot of cases work on the environmental aspects. So they are reducing the use of water, which is very relevant for the southern countries. They reduce the use of pesticide, antibiotics. However, the farmers are complaining. They say, okay, I need to do an investment, but how am I compensated on the environmental issues? If there's a clear, let's say, commercial benefits, then it's just comparing the costs and the benefits. But on the environmental benefits, it's difficult to define a good argument for farmers to invest now. Of course, on the long run, well, one farmer said it like, it's difficult to be green when your figures are red. So I think that's one of the key barriers. And the other one is about IoT. You put your data in the cloud, and farmers are concerned whether who's using it, and our inspection services looking at it. Well, there are a lot of concerns about the data in the cloud. These are the two main barriers, Michal.
Okay, we have another question from the audience, from Anna. I'm impressed by the outcomes, but also the holistic and business approach to the projects. How long had you been working on the project proposal? How many people were involved?
The project proposal took us about 3 to 4 person years. And the difficult part is to get the cases and to implement them and to convince companies to participate in a project like this. So it's really a big investment that you have to do for this kind of projects. Yes. And a lot of work that now I present as a result of the project are basically originating in the proposal already. So that's where we defined the approach, and so yeah, it's a large investment, and well, I'm working for a very huge company, a huge organization who can afford to do this kind of investments, and I'm happy to make use of that.
Okay, George, because we are nearly to the end of the time, but I think we would be able to extend a little bit, like for 2 or maybe 3 minutes. I would suggest to go to the last part of the presentation. We have still like 5 minutes to go.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
The legacy, what is, because the project ended in March, so we have, of course, the cases, and most of the cases, I think all of them are still progressing and still working on the solution. And if those that didn't make it to the market yet, they will continue to work on it because they are now good in place. So we have a nice collection of good practices that can be used. They are publicly available. You can use them via our site. We have a nice catalog of the reusable component, and we have a toolkit on how to support the supporting teams. They have condensed their how they support the use cases in different guidelines, templates, and so on. Well, one of the things that we are still working on is data sharing. It's really the hot potato. But what we did in the last 2 years is bringing all the results from IOF to the new project that we started 2 years ago. It's Smart Agri Hubs, and I want to tell you some. Smart Agri Hubs is about digital innovation hubs for agriculture. So these are centers at local level to support farmers and to promote digitalization in agriculture. These digital innovation hubs, we are creating a network. 400 of the digital innovation hub is our target. And we already have 300 of them on board, and they are using, they have access to all the knowledge that we developed in IOF, and they can use it for bringing digitalization at local level. So basically, it looks like this. We have the approach, use cases. We now call them innovation experiments. We have the teams, which are now competence centers. So these are organizations that can deliver technical or business support. We have the ecosystem part, which is now the Digital Innovation Hub is running a local ecosystem. They are supported in the project to develop themselves. And all the knowledge that we have is stored in an innovation portal that is publicly available. So you can have access to all the things that I mentioned. They are all in the Smart Agri Hubs innovation portal. And basically they are to support digital innovation hubs, to provide them with all the knowledge that we have at European level for digitalization in agriculture. So this is because we feel it is important not only to run a nice project, but now we have to scale up and rolling out. So it's bringing the good practices and the inspirational solution to the regions with a large ecosystem. So we expanded our ecosystem, IOF ecosystem, with local hotspots. We have developing toolkits for support, so Digital Innovation Hub can use them for providing services, and we hope that our good practices give a lot of inspiration for the DIHs to develop new projects at local level based on replication, so not in reinventing all the stuff again, but just take what is there, adapt it to the local situation and bring it to the farmers. And with that, we hope to have exposure in the pan-European network, so not only in the countries that are active in the Horizon program, but also in all corners of Europe. And I want to finish with that, and I want to thank you all for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thank you, George, for this very interesting presentation. You said that data sharing is now one of the biggest problems in digitalization in the agri-food sector. Do you have any clue, any recommendation how we can overcome this obstacle, how we can deal with this?
Well, there are two answers to that. The official answer is that the European Commission is now launching large programs on what they call data spaces. So this should be places that have clear governance, that have good regulation around it. So that's the official term. And on the other side, I see a lot of I see some initiative. We have a very inspiring example in Belgium, the Just Connect, where farmers and suppliers and processing are working together on a data space, local for Flanders, where they are experimenting with this data sharing. We have projects on this topic in France, in Spain, and in the Netherlands. But these are experiments, and the trick of the trade is to find the right governance modules. So who is owning the data space, who's owning the data, who is enforcing the regulation. It's all those issues that need to be tackled. It's good to say that the projects are very practical, but so they really have to make it work, so to say. It's not a technology issue, but it's more about how to find the right governance models.
George, thank you very much for your contribution. We are really impressed by the scale of the project you have been presenting, and this is really something what impressed us. I hope you don't mind if some of us will contact you in near future, on the more remote future, to maybe propose any cooperation possibilities. Yeah, so thanks a lot for your great contribution, and I think we have now like a clear vision that digitalization might impact a lot future of agri-food system. Thanks a lot again, and we are about to start a coffee break. However, I would like to ask the main organizers how much time we are going to have for a coffee.
We will have 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, so this is my fault. Sorry, because it was predicted like 15 minutes, not 10.
Well, actually, it is George's fault because the project is so interesting and the outcomes are so interesting for the audience. So thank you once again, George, for agreeing to be with us today. It is really, really great work that you have been done with your team. So congrats on that.
Okay. Thank you. It was my pleasure. And sorry for.
That was our pleasure. So don't be sorry.
Thank
you very much, and welcome to the coffee break.